All right, so let's talk about how I was kind of wrong about Sony, specifically to close out 2022. We had talked previously about PlayStation Plus with a couple of people, Nate and Ryan, mostly about how it's a very lacking service currently. But I thought, hey, maybe going into November, maybe December, we'll see some big announcements to close out the year. Well, we got our PlayStation Plus Premium announcement for what seems to be just November, and don't really have a lot of confidence to close out this year. So I kind of wanted to talk a bit about what's going on here and why I think this is the biggest thing that Sony needs to fix for 2023. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. So first of all, I have noticed that many people online right now are complaining about PlayStation Plus Premium, and I think with good reason. I actually had to pull myself away from God of War Ragnarok to talk about this situation. So for me, it's not necessarily an issue with Sony when it comes to creating games. It's more or less an issue with Sony when it comes to creating services. All right, that seems to be the thing that they're struggling a bit with here. And after looking at their offering, which we'll move over here to the PlayStation blog, for PlayStation Plus Premium and Extras, it kind of seems like they don't really care much about Premium at all, which is odd because that is like their top tier service. That's the most expensive service they offer. And they've gone through several titles that are being added to Extra, gave all of them these nice big spots in the PlayStation blog, right? Where you got like Elder Scrolls Skyrim Special Edition, Rainbow Six Siege, Kingdom Hearts games. You have Oddworld Soulstorm, Division, and so on. Like, there is a lot of value here for PlayStation Plus Extra. But then you get to the bottom, and PlayStation Plus Premium Classics is this like little half paragraph with some bullet points for Ratchet & Clank, then 2 Up Your Arsenal Deadlocked Future Tools of Destruction, which, okay, cool. They're going to add all these Ratchet & Clank games, but they're all PS3 titles, which means they're all streaming. And if you've used PlayStation Plus Premium streaming, you know it's not very good. The resolution obviously is lower. The frame rate is spotty as it is, and I mean, you're playing off of PS3 hardware that they've set up in different server centers. So it's unfortunately not the kind of experience I would like to see if, say, they were played natively through an emulator that Sony decided to engineer for the PlayStation 5. What a world that would be, right? But the fact that they're really not doing much when it comes to their classic selection is odd, because that's kind of what a lot of us figured they would do, and one of the reasons I'm sure many people signed up for PlayStation Plus Premium. I don't really know if many people went into this thinking that the game trials would be worth it, because even that seemed kind of sporadic and we weren't really sure of the details. It was definitely Sony taking the PS1, PS2, and PSP possibilities, just kind of throwing them out there to get us to sign up. And that's the part that's really baffling to me, is if you look through the libraries for these different systems, they are vast. There are so many different games that they could pick from, and I know they have to navigate the rights issues, specifically licensing and all the different things. Like, you're not going to go and grab a Tony Hawk game necessarily because of the soundtrack. We heard that Vicarious Visions had to do all kinds of different backflips to just get the soundtrack, even though it was incomplete, in the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, the HD remake that they did. So I'm not really expecting Sony to go back, get sports games that people liked, different fighting games, even like Def Jam Fight for New York. That's a minefield of rights issues there. But if you kind of look around, you can see there are many games that Sony just owns. They should be able to move it over to the service. Like the PS1, Legend of Dragoon, seems like a slam dunk to basically all of us, except it's not there, which is weird. If you go back and you look through the lineup of games, you could probably pick some out that they could work things out with the different companies. Metal Gear Solid is a great example of one that I'm sure Konami, who is just kind of throwing intellectual properties all over the place, seeing who wants to work with what, seems like that would be a good one to add into the service with full trophy support, and that's kind of what I would expect for many of these titles. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, I know that's available on the platform through a collection, but the idea is to add these in to the PlayStation Plus premium service to make it feel more valuable, like you're getting your $120 per year's worth. Tenchu, you have the Lunar series, Dino Crisis, Xenogears, Bushido Blade, any of the Breath of Fire. There's Breath of Fire 3 and 4 on the PS1. You can just pick one of them. Same with Parasite Eve or Tales of Destiny. The list just goes on and on. And then you get to the PS2, and there's thousands of games to pick from. Obviously, I mentioned Metal Gear. There's 2 or 3 there. But God of War 1 and 2, God of War Ragnarok is massive right now online. Like, you feel like you would just go get 1 and 2 and drop it on there. That'd be really cool to see that. 3 is already available anyway through the service. You can just download it now because they had a PS4 version. Otherwise, though, you would be playing God of War 1 and 2, I believe, through a collection on the PS3 through streaming, which is, not great. That'd be nice just to have those moved over. PS2 versions with trophy support and all of that. I was curious about Soul Calibur 2 because that has Heihachi from Tekken in it. That was the guest character, and that's Bandai Namco, who also owns Soul Calibur. So I almost wonder if they could work with them to bring that into the mix. Could be kind of a cool announcement there. Any of the Ratchet & Clank games that would then also be native. Twisted Metal Black, that's already on the PS4. But again, adding it into this service just to add value. Burnout Revenge, Dragon Quest VIII. We don't actually have a good version of Dragon Quest VIII right now. You can play it on the 3DS. It's on mobile phones, but one that they could bring up, obviously move the resolution up, again, trophies, all these different things. It'd be pretty cool to see a bunch of people try out what's a really good JRPG. The Sly Cooper series, Shadow Hearts. Can you imagine if they were like, oh yeah, the different Shadow Hearts games are just now in the service. Digital Devil Saga, Xenosaga, SOCOM. There's so many SOCOM games for the PS2 you can drop into the service. Even something weird and off the wall like PsyOps. And don't even get me started on the PSP games. This should have been the big focus for Sony. Like, there are so many titles that people just missed out on for the PSP. It would be so cool to have, the God of War games, once again, just go crazy with God of War, get all of these legacy ones and start dropping them into the service. People like Metal Gear Solid, Peace Walker, Tekken, Dark Resurrection, the Siphon Filter games, Dark Mirror, Logan Shadow, Daxter, Mega Man Powered Up, Resistance Retribution, Jeanne d'Arc. The list just goes on. And it's odd to me that Sony has been, very, very spotty, if at all, with these releases. I think the last one we had was, it was Siphon Filter 2, and that came out September, like third week in September. So coming up on 2 full months since the last PS1 game that went in. I'm going to tell you now, I think it's going to be announced as Siphon Filter 3, which, sure, we have like all these Siphon Filter games on there. That's great, but I wouldn't mind them jumping around a bit in at least just the PS1 library and start picking out some weird stuff. Even if you look at the streaming library with the PS3, well, I'm really not interested in it, and it's unfortunate because whenever I see a PS3 game get announced for the service, I go, oh yeah, it's streaming though. There were a lot of PS3 games in PlayStation Now. In fact, they're still slowly adding them back in, it seems, and that maybe is a strategy from Sony now, is when they did the merge over from PS Now, it didn't have the entire library go over. There were many games that just got pulled completely. So as a PlayStation Plus premium subscriber, that's something I would really like to see Sony attempt to push harder, adding classic titles in. Not even really one a month anymore. I'm looking at like 2, 3, maybe even 1 month you have 2 PS2 games. Maybe the next month you have a couple of PSP games, and you jump around a bit, sure. But I would just like to see a more concerted effort from them. The fact that Nintendo seems to be doing a better job when it comes to their own classic library being added in. It's a bit weird, and I don't really get it. I don't know what's going on at Sony right now when it comes to this, because we're hearing that their PlayStation Plus subscribers are down, but the revenue that's coming in is up, which means that, they are getting more money specifically because of these higher tiers. I still think PlayStation Plus Extra is a good tier to sign up for if you just picked up a PS5, but I can't recommend PlayStation Plus Premium. So for now, I would just look towards that extra tier if you're curious about some of the games that have been added in, because it's a good library initially with a new console purchase. But at this time, I would just kind of hang out, wait, and see what's added. And technically, you can buy, I believe, just about all of these PlayStation Plus Premium classics that have been added so far, just outright. So you could stay on extra and just buy these games as they pop up, because at this point, you'd only be looking at 5 or 6 maybe a year. Hopefully that changes next year from Sony, and they actually start dropping in some interesting PS1, PS2, and PSP games. And that's one thing that has me optimistic going forward into 2023 is this can turn around pretty quickly, since it's a service that has games added in on regular intervals. With Nintendo, when they first showed up with their online service and like 20 Nintendo games, wasn't exactly the most exciting thing for people, but as we've gone along, Nintendo has continued to add in release after release after release, and some exciting games have dropped in, and now, for the most part, even with that N64 library there at a higher price, people seem content with the content that's there for Switch Online. So over time, I'm hopeful that Sony will work to build up this service with good releases from their legacy platforms, but, well, we got to see Sony actually deliver that first. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below, specifically the PlayStation Plus Premium side. If you are someone who has subscribed to it, how do you feel about it? And if you're not subscribed, what would get you to jump into the service? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.